There we go. Well, hi everyone. My name is Alison Watts. I'm from the Southern Coast Postgraduate Association, and it's delighted to introduce Megan Lee for her workshop this afternoon, Research Impact and Social Media, and the conversation as well. So just, I don't know if you want me to do too much of your background, Megan, from the flyer we put together, that you are a senior teaching fellow at Bond University, and you've published articles in nutritional psychiatry, diet, mental health, body image, disordered eating, and the role of occupational stress in academic health. So some fascinating fields there. So I'll hand it over to you now, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much. So a little bit of additional background to that. So I finished my PhD in December of last year, so I'm pretty fresh and new. And I'm really passionate about sharing how I got my role at Bond University for the first thing, and the things that I did in my PhD that wouldn't be classified as doing your PhD. So I really want to talk about that as we go along, and some of the reasons how social media and research impact in the public has really shaped my career, which is interesting because I was just talking to Alison about how I don't actually have any training in marketing. I come from an era, so I'm 42, my birthday's today. I come from an era where social media was not a thing when I was a child or a teenager or in my 20s. And we didn't have the internet when I was at school. And so this was all kind of new to me when I first started my my studies. So from what we discussed today, please don't think, oh no, I'm too old, I don't understand technology, or it's out of your reach, because I totally started from scratch myself. Cool. So considering this is a workshop about research impact, I probably should tell you all about my own social media. So I currently have a website, meganlovingmeagain.com. We'll go through that in a little bit, and I'll give you some ideas about why it is a good idea to have your own website as a PhD/Masters of Research student. There's my Twitter handle at Megan Lee PhD. Feel free to follow me if you would like to. I use all my social medias for different reasons, and I'll get into that in a second. So my Twitter handle is all about my academic stuff. Usually it was about my PhD struggles and strengths and weaknesses, but now it's kind of turned into an academic thing where I share papers, etc. My Instagram and my Facebook are about my research topic, so it's a completely different thing. It's all about fun pictures of food, because all my research is in food and mental health, so I do fun pictures of food, funny little memes, and little bits of information about the research on food and mental health, and also body image and being kind to ourselves. So Instagram and Facebook are a little bit different. So that's at Megan Loving Me. Again, that's my handle for both of those. So let's get started. So today we are going to be answering some questions that you might have as PhD/Masters of Research students, or Masters students overall, about why social media and research impact is important for you. So why is research impact? What is research impact firstly? And why should I be worried about this at this stage of my academic career? What happens if I don't want to be an academic? What happens if I want to go out into industry? I'm not really interested in becoming a teacher or a tutor or a marker. I'm not interested in progressing into academia. Why should I use social media for research impact? Why are social media platforms important in postgrad studies? What types of things can I use social media for? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, TikTok, which ones should I target? Which ones are the most useful for academic reasons or for participant recruitment, which is my favorite one? Are there other avenues for increasing research impact outside of social media? And then we're going to talk a little bit about pitching for the conversation and some things that happened for me very, very early in my PhD. So, research impact. Research impact is the contribution that research makes to the economy, to society, to environmental culture, beyond the contribution to academic research. So it goes beyond just publishing in scientific journals and getting our research to other scientists. It's about getting our research to the public, but not just getting our research to the public when it makes an impact to policy and practice. And when we get asked to prove our research impact as academics, we can't just say, look, here's my conversation articles and here's my social media. I'm very engaged on all of these. They want to see how things have changed in policy and practice directly from your papers. So to start doing that, you need to get them out into the public. So on average, it takes 17 years from conceptualization of an idea for your research to make an impact on policy and practice. 17 years. Let that sink in for a second. Once our research is published, it often gets hidden behind paywalls and only read by other scientists in our field. Don't even get me started on the fact that we do all the work and the journals don't pay us. In fact, they get us to pay them thousands of dollars to publish our work. And then they ask us to review the work for free also. So that is very interesting, but everything gets stuck behind a paywall that only other scientists can access. Surely there is a better way of getting our research to the people who need it. That's the reason we do research, right? Is to help those out in the community. That's why we're researchers. We have this driving need to help those outside of ourselves. And this is why I think that social media and platforms like The Conversation, which we'll talk about in a second, are imperative in the way things are done in academia and in science going forward. And we as new academics need to make a change, because other older academics who aren't as technologically advanced or aren't using these types of platforms are missing out on this great ability to let their research make impact in the world. So this is how it all began for me. Now, I did say before that I'm of an older age, and when I was younger, there wasn't social media, so I wasn't very good at it. Before I started my studies at university in 2014, so it's been a good 8 years in a row now, I only had my personal Facebook page, and I didn't use it very well. It was a little bit cringy and a little bit embarrassing, to be honest. So I have actually gotten rid of that Facebook page and started a new one, because I don't like looking back on the stories of the things that I used to say that were super cringy. So how it all began for me, when I did my orientation into honours, so that was 2014, I think. 2016 I did honours. Someone said to me, you need to think about how you're going to recruit for your study. And at the time, I was really interested in how body image in women was impacted by dieting and food restriction. And I did a cross-sectional study for my honours year on postpartum mums and those who are trying to lose weight to return to their pre-pregnancy shape and size, and those who are eating intuitively. And we found some really interesting things. But to recruit for that project, someone told me that Instagram would be a good place to recruit from. Now, this turned out to be not such a great platform for participant recruitment, so keep that in mind as we go. But this is how my time started. These are my first 5 posts. This is my first day in honours, the black and white photo of my computer and how excited I was to get things done. And then a couple of memes about body image. And that's kind of how I curated my Instagram page for my honours year. And then I recruited from there, but didn't get very many participants. However, I decided to recruit from Facebook, from my personal Facebook page, and got like 700 participants in 2.5 weeks. But this was at a time where Facebook didn't have as many restrictions, and the way that they did things was a little bit different. And I was going into every single mum and bubs group and posting on there, and the admins didn't really have control of what I was doing. So I got lots and lots of participants, had a lot of angry admins at me for posting on their pages without permission. So please don't do that. That's against ethics now. I didn't know back at the time. So that was my honest story. When I got into PhD, I started to understand that Instagram was not going to be the place for participant recruitment, but it became a place for myself, where I was sharing lots of fun pictures of food and mental health, and it kept me engaged with my PhD. I set aside a little time every morning to just put up a photo and a little blurb about what I was doing in my research, and it kept me going, and it kept me interested in my own topic. And I know there's times when you're in a PhD or in a master's where you find it difficult to get out of bed in the morning and to get enthused about your topic. And this really helped for me, was getting it out to the participants, getting little pictures out about what I was doing. And then I also share my successes on there as well. So when I got a good grade, or I did well, or someone in the community said something about my work, I always put it up on my Instagram. And I still do to this day. I love my Instagram page, but it is a good tool for getting your research to the public and information out to the public, but not so great for people recruiting into your studies. So, any questions from anyone before I move on to the benefits of social media for postgrad students? No? Okay, cool.
I have one, Megan.
Okay, Madison, thank you.
It's not really for me, but if for anybody else, how would you come up with a really good handle?
That is a great question. I don't even know how I came up with it.
It took me a really long time to get mine, and I had to do a lot of like researching to see the different types. And I just wanted to ask the question for anyone who might be thinking, what do I even put my handle for?
Sure. And see, I don't even know where Megan Loving Me Again came from, but it's kind of like a bit of a play on words, and it's all about like my own personal struggle with loving my own body. And that's where my research started, in nutrition and psychiatry, after I had my child, my first baby. Yeah. And that's how it kind of came about. But you can see on the page at the moment, my Twitter handle is actually Megan Lee PhD. That was a bit easier. But then I got in trouble by an academic at SCU because my handle was Megan Lee PhD before I got my PhD. Because I was like, I'm Megan Lee, who's doing a PhD. So, but they're like, no, that's wrong. You can't have that. So I've had to change my name and my handle because it wasn't considered to be correct.
Yeah, I've got mine in the bio.
Yeah.
Like working towards kind of thing. So yes. Yeah. I just wanted to ask it for anyone who might be thinking, like, you know, how'd you get your handle? How, like, you know, how do you start? Because sometimes that's the hardest thing, is just even coming up with a name. It's like not the posting. It's Anyway,
if you can do something that identifies you from the rest of the world, and like there's lots of handles out there now, so it's tricky finding one. I don't have too much advice on that. I don't really know how I got mine. I can't remember. So the benefits of social media for postgrads. So firstly, it gets your research to the people who need it the most. That's the most important one for me about research impact. I don't really care how many papers I publish and what my metrics are. I care about people who are experiencing negative mental health. If they see one of my posts and they're like, hey, maybe I'll try eating more plants, and that helps, then that's all I care about, really, to be honest. It keeps your head in the research area. PhDs and masters go for a very long time, so it keeps you engaged. Another really cool thing is that it keeps you updated as soon as papers are published in your area. So if you're on Twitter, and I'll explain a little bit more about how to develop your follower list, which is the most important part about social media use. But if you're on things like Twitter and you follow all the academics in your field, every time they write a paper, they'll tweet it, and then you'll see, oh, new paper in my field, put that into Zotero /EndNote / whatever your software management is, in the to be read folder. That's a very full folder, to be read. But it keeps you updated. And one of the benefits for me at the beginning of my PhD for that was I was writing a umbrella review / literature review / scoping review thing. And every time a paper came up after I'd done my search in the time that I was writing it and getting it published, I could add that to my review. So that was a really, really handy. Don't look at your Twitter on the weekend. Otherwise you feel like you're at work constantly if you use it for the same reasons that I use it for. These are also really good for networking with international experts in your field. I am widely known in the diet and depression field because of how active I am on social media. So much so that when I went over to a conference in the UK in 2019, in like the second year of my PhD, everyone at the conference knew who I was before I even went there. And I was super new, super early career, but they had seen me on Twitter mainly, talking about my PhD and what was happening in there. And the big leader of our field, Felice Jacker, came and gave me a hug. She's like, so great to meet you. I'm so glad you're here. So you get known, which is so, so important in your field. You can promote your research, papers, ideas. I promote everything. You have to be really comfortable with shameless self-promotion all the time. Look what I did. Look at the successes I've had. Look at all the great things that I'm doing in my career, because people will then notice you. So you have to get used to that. You can get quick answers to research questions. When I was doing a very tricky data analysis for my PhD in Stata, and I'd get stuck, rather than ask a question or send an email to my supervisors or to someone and get an answer within days, I could go straight on Twitter, be like, doing this in Stata, bit stuck, can you help, and instantly get an answer. So you just have to follow certain hashtags or pages to get instant information about things in your field or for stats. It provides you with a support network. Now, this was really important for me in my PhD because most of it was during COVID and we were very, very lonely during our time at home. So there are HDR specific groups like PhD Life and Open Academics and Academic Chatter, and hashtags that you can follow that are specific to postgrads. And to be honest, you don't even have to engage with those for them to benefit you, because other people will write things and you'd be like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who felt like that. So just even scrolling through the things that other people are engaging with, and there are HDRs all over the world, and you'll start to see patterns emerging that are international and not just in our little bubble in Australia. So highly recommend following as many PhD related hashtags and chats or master's hashtags or chats.
Sorry, Megan, can I just
Yes.
ask quickly, what is HDR?
A higher degree of research. So that is the umbrella term for PhDs, master's students, anyone above honours level fits into higher degree of research.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. If they have a research component of their master's, yes. Another really cool thing about social media is that you learn about conferences when they're coming up that are relevant to your field, because people in your field will share them and you'll see them, and job opportunities. This is a big one. I don't know how many times I see things come up on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook of jobs that are available to PhD students, master's students, postdocs, all sorts of things come up. So that's a big one. And I will share with you in a little while my story about how I got my job at Bond directly because of social media. Like I said before, you need to be comfortable with shameless self-promotion at all times. Here is my favorite tweet of my entire life ever. When I submitted my PhD, it got examined by Professor Andrew Scully, who is the leading scholar in my field, who examined my PhD. And I got a phone call from my supervisor on Good Friday saying, Megan, your PhD examination scores have come back. And I got really excited. And I went on Twitter to talk to my writing retreat girlfriends and found this tweet from Professor Andrew Scully, who examined my PhD. And if you're not on social media, you could miss something amazing about yourself. All right. So I think at this stage, I might, before I tell you how I got my job at Bond, I might show you a little bit through my social medias that I currently have, and you can ask any questions that you want of how things work and how I best utilize them. I think we've got, yeah, and then there's a slide on how to use social media effectively. Oh, maybe I'll do it after that. No, we'll keep going and I'll do it after that. So I will now tell you the story about how I got my job at Bond and why the use of social media is super important in PhD studies. Now, a lot of people think that PhDs and Masters of Research, the main point of doing them is to get the thesis done. The piece of writing, the 80,000 to 100,000 words that you're writing, getting that done. And a lot of people get lost in just writing the thesis and shut themselves off from the public, shut themselves off from the world, and just get the thesis written in 3 to 4 years. I have friends who did that, who just sat at home, wrote their thesis, amazing thesis, and came out the back end of it without any networks or any opportunities because they hadn't promoted what they were doing in the time that they were writing their thesis. So my story about how I got my job at Bond. Where will I start in that story? All right, so one of the current academics who is teaching at Bond and I were connected on Twitter through an incident that happened that I can't go into because of confidentiality reasons, but an incident that happened with a student from both unis. And we got connected and we liked each other on Twitter. That was it. We didn't comment too much on each other's posts. 18 months went by. I liked some of his posts. He liked some of my posts. We didn't really super engage with each other. But after 18 months, he had obviously seen some of the tweets that I was doing were about research methods and statistics, which is what I specialized in during the end of my PhD. That's what I was teaching at SCU. And he said to me, Megan, I'm in a really stuck situation. I need a tutor for research methods at Bond. Do you think you could help me out by marking and tutoring for a semester? And I was like, yeah, sure. I do that at SCU. Maybe I can fit it in because at the time I was kind of really close to my scholarship cap. So I'm so glad I said yes because I almost didn't. I said, yeah, sure, I'll come to Bond. And then when I went over to Bond, just from this connection on Twitter, I started working there for 3 weeks, and he said to me, "You really there's a position here for a permanent role. You really should look at applying." And I'm like, "No, I haven't finished my PhD yet. I don't think that they would say yes." And it was for a clinical role, and I have no clinical psychology experience. He's like, "No, I think you should." And then we went and talked to the boss, and the boss was like, "Yeah, I think you should apply for that as well." So I applied for it, and I had applied for roles at SCU in the past, and the answer to that was always wait till you finish your PhD, wait till you finish your PhD, and then you will have more of a chance of getting a job. And I applied for the role at Bond, and while I was in the interview at Bond, one of the other academics, I had seen her and engaged with her on Twitter as well, because we both write papers in body image and disordered eating in the field. And she realized who I was, and I realized who she was. And I was like, oh, I've actually cited your studies in my studies. And that gave me, I think, a bit of a heads up in the interview situation. And another thing was I went and looked at everybody on the interview panel's social medias to see what sort of research they had done. So I had a bit of an idea when I went into the interview of what their research was about as well. So that was also a really good way of using social media. And I ended up getting the job. And I truly believe that if I had have just been writing my thesis and not focusing on networking and social media and writing in the public domain, I don't think any of the opportunities that I did get during my PhD would have arisen. So I'm a big advocate for social media use. And I think it's super important, more important than writing the thesis, for your future success and your future roles. And this also works for industry, not just academia, because people, if you are following people in industry, they will also be seeing you and being like, who is this person? They are doing something in their PhD really close to a role that we have in our organization that's not filled. So the same sort of thing could happen. So again, you have to be very used to shameless self-promotion, so people know what you offer to the world, to the public. How to use social media effectively? I'll stop again for questions just before I go into this, because I know that I just get on a roll and I don't want to isolate you from being able to ask questions. Okay. Feel free to pop your hand up or just interrupt me at any time. How to use social media effectively, and this is just coming obviously from my own personal experience. So post regularly. So I always post, I used to in my PhD, I used to post every morning when I woke up. The best times of the day to post are 7 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. Particularly for participant recruitment, because that's when people have the opportunity to do surveys and things online. I always, when I'm recruiting, I do a recruitment drive at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then a week later I'll do a recruitment drive at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and then a week later I'll do a recruitment drive at kind of midday for those people who are at home during the day. But post regularly. At the moment, I'm posting on Instagram maybe twice a week, because my academic life is so hectic but fun, and I'm loving it. So it is good, but I'm not posting as much on social media now. Twitter at least once a day, but that's mainly just retweeting other people's stuff. But Instagram has dropped off a little, but try to post as much as you can. If you have a topic that lends to pictures like food or fun, bright colors, then Instagram is a really good place for your research. But if you've got a research topic that doesn't lend to photos very well, then I would just ignore Instagram and focus solely on Twitter. Lots of people like LinkedIn as well. I don't find it useful. So, but other people do that I've worked with. So keep things bright and engaging, always be positive. Try not to use social media, especially considering they are your professional accounts. And I would always recommend separating your personal and your professional accounts. Try to keep them positive. The most important part is, and I did this right at the beginning when I opened Twitter, is go and look up the most influential academics in your field, using the publications that you have, and scroll through their friends list and add anyone whose profile suggests that they research in your field. So I know Felice Jacker in my field is the main Australian researcher in diet and mental health. So I went and found her Twitter page, and I went and looked at all her followers and just went through each person. If they had food and mental health or anything to do with nutrition and mental health, I added them. And then I started to engage with them. So I started liking their posts and commenting on their posts and resharing their posts. And if they wrote something that was close to what I'm doing in my PhD, I would ask people questions. And this is how I got myself known in the field. Celebrate others' successes. So you'll see the post on the side there from Sarah Gauci, who is now Dr. Gauci. She was one of my writing retreat friends who we just did Pomodoros online. She's from Flinders, I believe. When her PhD was submitted and approved by the examiners, I put a little happy dance GIF with Snoopy and his little friend, but also putting GIFs up. It was really fun, little videos. Whenever someone does something awesome, we went through a stage of putting up Schitt's Creek memes all the time, like loving that for you. So do things that are fun and quirky. You don't have to always be this serious researchy person. It's all about fun. People will engage with you more if you're fun on your socials. Don't just use social media as a recruitment tool. So if you are recruiting, which is an amazing thing that you can do, and I get lots and lots of participants from Twitter mainly, but don't only use it as a recruitment tool, because if you are only doing that, people get really sick of you and block you. Learn social media etiquette. So don't be like me and go on Facebook and just put your surveys into groups without admin's permission. They get very angry and you get blocked from Facebook. I know this from experience. Always post a link to your papers as soon as they are published and tag any authors you cited in it so that they can see a paper that their research has been cited in. They love that, and they will often read your paper and then use your paper in future publications, which is really good. I have an interesting story that I'll tell you in a second about something that happened when I posted a link to my paper. But always, that's the most important part about the use of Twitter in particular, is posting links to your publications and conversation articles, things like that. And try not to get into arguments with the non-science community, particularly if you have a controversial topic. Now, I'm giving this advice to you and totally don't follow it myself. I'm very well known for getting into Twitter arguments with non-science community all the time. In fact, I'll show you a video in a sec of a time when it happened to me and something very interesting happened. But try not to get into arguments, because you end up fighting with people who have no idea about how the scientific method works, how critical analysis works, and they are coming from a very biased position, and it's like banging your head up against a brick wall. You don't need to be doing it. I tend to get into fights with the carnivore community because everyone thinks I'm a vegetarian, because lots of my research is in plant-based diet. I'm not, but people assume I am, which is a lot of fun.
Megan, can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
With using Twitter, like I'm a pretty basic user, do you find it's easier to do it like a desktop, a laptop, or phone? Like, especially when you're finding links, you're linking to your papers, or you're finding other people's Twitter handles that you want to tag in. How do you approach that?
I do everything on my phone. Everything. I find social media needs to be accessible via your phone. I don't do anything on my computer, which is bad, because then work is constantly with you and you are constantly doing work, even outside of work hours. But yeah, everything, posting papers, recruiting for surveys, everything I do on my phone.
Fair enough. I just found, like doing Twitter on the desktop can be easier if you're searching for links and searching for, you know, tags and things. But anyway, everyone's different, I guess.
That is a good point. I don't tend to use it on my laptop because I feel like that's procrastinating working.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to engage with my socials outside of work hours, which again is not a great work-life balance thing to be doing, but I don't really scaffold any time into my working day for social media. So I kind of use it like a reward for doing a task. So yeah. And I think Bill goes into that a little bit as well. All right. So before we go and have a look at the video of the fun thing that happened to me on Twitter, I will take you through just really quickly my pages and how I use them. So firstly, this is my website. Now, if anyone wants to ask me any questions about developing your own website, I'm quite happy to have an email conversation with you about that. I developed this one by myself, and it cost me $120 a year to have it. So I thought it was going to be a lot more expensive than that. So it's got like my front page, and then I'm available for research, collaboration, and data analysis, because that's what I'm trying to promote. I've got a little bit of a something nice someone said about me on there, and then my contact details at the bottom. I don't have any like links where people can contact me directly from the webpage. They just have to go around and either email me or phone me. And then links to my other social medias at the bottom of my page. Then just really simple, I've got my publications where someone can directly click on the link and be taken to the properly copyrighted version of my article. Now, I have had recently some of the experts in copywriting at Bond help me with this, because I didn't understand how copyright of my publications worked. So they came and helped me. So I've got 14 papers at the moment, I think, in here. I used the pictures from a free uncopyrighted website, so where you've got free pictures that don't have any copyrights on them, called Unsplash, but you've got free pixels as well, and then free GIFs at infographics. So there's a heap of places you can get free uncopyrighted pictures that you can use on either websites or tutorial slides or things like that, and not be worried about being sued. So there's our papers. I'll give you a look at my fave. This one, Out of Tune: Perceptions of Engagement with and Responses to Mental Health Interventions by Professional Popular Musicians, by Amy Visser, who happens to be here today. Hello, Amy. This is Amy's paper, which I helped write. And I can click directly on it and it takes me to the properly copyrighted version of that paper with the little copyright mention underneath it. So as you can see, it's not the paper that gets published. It's the accepted manuscript. This is really important. So once you start sharing on social media and sharing to places like this, you have to be very, very aware of that you're not breaking the law. I also share my conversation articles, which we'll talk about in the second half of this workshop, on how to pitch to the conversation, how to get a conversation article out there. So these are all related to my PhD and other works that I've done. Again, click on the link, it takes you directly to that article. Then I have my posters that I've presented in the past in there. And then my podcast that I have been on. So as you can see, just a really simple website where everything that you do that can make research impact is contained in one place, and you can send people to that one place rather than being like, if someone asks you, oh, what have you written in the conversation, rather than going and finding all the conversation articles and sending it to them or sending your publications, you can just send them to your website, which is very cool. And it didn't take a lot of setting up, to be honest, once I knew what I was doing. The next thing I wanted to show you is my Instagram page really quickly. And please jump in if you have any questions about how these all work. Again, there's the handle. It shows you how many followers you've got, how many posts you've done, how many people you are following. And then this is the most important part about any social media platform, is that you have a bio that says who you are, what university you're at, what your research is in. Because when you like people, particularly when you start going through the list of authors that you want to follow and people who are in your field, when they get a request or an invitation from you, they will look at your bio and be like, should I like this person back? Should I follow this person? And if you've got no bio, they'll be like, who is this Megan Lee? Get out of my inbox. But if they see, oh, Megan's at Bond, she's got a PhD in nutritional psychiatry, she researches in diet, mental health, and body image. If I'm a researcher who's interested in that, I will follow that person. So you need to have a very succinct bio that talks about who you are. And this is the type of idea of what I put up. So my birthday card that I got from my son, everything is bright and fun. I always put up book recommendations because I love books. The research impact workshop we did today, a little bit of a fun thing about the 6 best doctors, and I crossed out diet and put plants because everything's about eating more plants in my research. A little bit of a brag about psychology at Bond being #1 in Queensland, an alcohol-free drink of the week. But as you can see, everything's fun. There's me in my PhD hat and 2 of my girlfriends who graduated at the same time as me, some foodie photos, some things about eating plants again. This is me at the Southern Cross Postgraduate Conference. So as you can see, it's like a mix of like things. There's me at the gym. Just a mix of like research things and fun things and things that are important to me. I do a bit of LGBTIQ research now with the lovely Emily, who is also here, who is doing her PhD in authenticity in the LGBTIQ community, which we are very excited about. More book recommendations, my podcast. So you are sharing everything, self-promotion constantly about the things that you are doing. And it doesn't have to be directly about your research. Share papers that have some interesting findings. So this one was about a randomized control trial where they found that eating chocolate improves your mental health. And the way that it improves your mental health is from its mechanism in the gut microbiome, keeping in mind that it's 85% cocoa chocolate, not your usual. Anyway, I still think that's wonderful. Something funny about a Brazil nut not having any outer layer on. So something funny, a little bit of cooking that I've done, stuff like that. So bright, fun, engaging. It takes 2 seconds in the morning for me to do that. My next one is my Facebook page. Now I directly link my Instagram to my Facebook page, so it's not double handling. Everything in my Facebook page is identical to everything in my Instagram, as you can see. So I'm not having to post things to 2 different social media sites at once. I don't really engage too much in my Facebook page because I think Facebook is just sends you down a rabbit hole of not being able to, get stuck in scrolling Facebook, and then all of a sudden you've lost 2 hours of your life. I'm like, what happened? Where was I? So I hate Facebook for that, but Facebook's better than Instagram for participant recruitment because you can put direct links for your surveys, which you can't do in Instagram unless you put it in your story. The next one that I have is Twitter. This is the one that I am the most active on, and it is the most useful for academia. research, getting things out there. Most of the science community use Twitter. A lot of them don't use Instagram and Facebook. So Twitter is the main platform for academics and scientists. And it's a little bit different, but it's kind of got a little bit of the same stuff. You can pin your favorite tweet to the top. Obviously, I put the thing that Andrew Scully said about my thesis up there because it's my favorite tweet of all time. So anytime someone visits my page, that's the first thing that they see. But again, the bio is the most important part of your page for the same reason that I said before. People need to know who you are when they are going to follow you. Again, it'll tell you how many followers you have, how many you are following. And then Twitter is less about pictures, even though I've got some there for my birthday today, but it's more about engaging with other academics. There's Felice Jacker. She's the main researcher in my field. I constantly engage with her. There she is congratulating someone. See, even the main researchers in the field are still celebrating other people's successes. It's the best way. Amy Loffman, who is one of the lead microbiome researchers in the world, talking about a preprint to a new guidebook for the gut-brain axis, which was really exciting. So Felice Jacker said congratulations on that. Oh, here is the only conference I ever like to present at, the Nutritional Psychiatry Research Conference. If I wasn't on Twitter, I wouldn't know this was happening. And the abstracts are due in October. So I retweet that because that's interesting and I want other people going to that. But as you can see, it's less about pictures and more about words and getting your research out there. This is Felice tweeting about the global burden of disease, the new stuff coming out about that. And you can follow topics or hashtags. Now, Twitter is recommending that I follow veganism and vegetarianism and psychology because these are all the hashtags and the words that I use in my tweets because a lot of my research is on plant-based stuff and psychology and nutrition. I don't know what Monash is there. Anyway. Podcasts that I recommended, a food and mood podcast with Wolfgang Marx, again, Felice Jacker. So just retweeting and tweeting other people's stuff. LinkedIn is very similar, but it is completely about the professional. It's supposed to be a professional Facebook. Oh, it's telling me I don't exist. That's wonderful. It's because I don't use it very often. Again, it's very, very, very similar to Facebook. Oh, this is the Teach Lab one, where you can put academic things up. I don't really find it that useful, but others do, as I said. I think they're my main ones. And right before, I'll give you a 5-minute break in a second, but right before I do that, I will share with you a video. How do I move this? Oh, that's all in the road. Sorry. If I share this, will everyone be able to hear it, is the question, Alison?
I believe so. I think so.
Okay, well, I'll play it and you tell me if you can hear it. And if not, I'll let
Okay.
everyone go for a break first and then we'll work out the audio.
Okay, sure.
Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll let everybody go away for a 10-minute break till on the hour, so a 9-minute break. And
Okay.
Alison and I will figure out how to fix the audio.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Hey Megan.
Hi, Madison. How you doing?
Yeah, good. It's been really good to listen to your talk, but I'm gonna jet. I need to get ready for tonight, and I also am spontaneously getting a tattoo, so I have to go.
No problem. Watch the end of the recording. We'll send the recordings out. The end of the workshop is all about pitching to the conversation, why you want to pitch to the conversation, and the best way to go about getting approved for an article.
Yes, well, I read on there that they only accept PhD students. They don't accept masters, because I was looking the other day after our
Really?
conversation, and it says that they'll only accept from PhD. They won't accept for any honors or masters, even by research.
Even if your supervisor goes as first author and you go for like second?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Boo.
Yeah, because I was looking into it the other day, and it was actually something I was going to email you or reach out to you about, because I was having a look at, because I was going to pitch something to them, because I've been writing on my blog, like my journey is
Very
how
cool.
I'm doing it. But I wanted to write something small regarding what we've found, and also mention our survey that we're actually going to be launching in September, hoping to get it out there to help with participant recruitment.
Yeah.
So like that awareness about CBD within the autistic community and stuff like that,
Amazing.
and then also being able to, but yeah, I'll have to see, because I just didn't know how to go about it.
You could write it and get your supervisor to submit it, but you wouldn't get any credit, but you would get the participants from the conversation.
Hopefully I would have upscaled by then. My COC is due by the end of the month, so I'm hoping I would have upscaled by then.
So you're transferring from a Masters of Research to a PhD? Wait until you do that. And then
yeah, I was always going to. I was just waiting to publish first.
Yeah, wait and then do the conversation later. To be honest, your topic is something the conversation will take up instantly.
Yes,
Instantly.
I will want to talk to you later about Twitter. I've never used it. I have never used Twitter. I'm an Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok person. So
all right. Set up a Twitter and add me, and then I'll tweet with you and get you going.
Thank you so much. Anyway, I'm going to run and get my spontaneous tattoo.
Okay, cool. I'm going to try and figure out how to get the audio to work.
Megan,
Okay,
another question.
Thanks, Madison. See you. Listen, Megan.
There's another question. Sorry, Alison.
All right. I was just going to stop recording while we went on a break, but we can keep going.
Okay, I'll answer the question, then we can do the recording.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, just a quick one. With the social media platforms, are they all personal profiles, or is there such a thing as a business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So all of my profiles are professional or business, and I always put they ask what type of business, and I always say scientist. But I don't mix my personal Facebook page and my professional Facebook page. So I think it's really important to have that distinction.
Right, and you don't have to provide an ABN or anything like that if you're registering it as a professional or business?
No.
Right, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I might just stop recording while we work out the sound.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody here?
Yep, I'm here. Donna.
Excellent.
Thanks. And I've started recording.
Nice. All right. So I'm going to show you a bit of fun that happened with me on social media. It became very popular in the science community because of something interesting that happened. It was an argument between myself and a carnivore. A little bit of background on what happened before that. So, and this is a really good indication of what social media can do for your research. So I published a paper at the beginning of this year about plant-based diet and mental health. So it was vegans and vegetarians who had and diet quality. So we were trying to find out whether or not diet quality was an indicator of depressive symptoms. And what we found was that those who had a high diet quality, so a vegan or vegetarian diet that was high in rich, fresh fruit, veg, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, actually had decreased symptoms of depression. And those who had low diet quality, so eating ultra-processed foods, the meat replacement foods, things like that, had increased symptoms of depression. Now, the paper didn't compare vegans and vegetarians to omnivores because we recruited during COVID and only got 26 omnivores for some reason. And that was a problem with my recruitment process because it looked like when we were recruiting that it was only for plant-based dietary followers. And we didn't realize that until after we'd finished recruitment. So that was a very good lesson in making sure that all your recruitment posts on social media actually recruit the people you want. So that's a whole nother workshop. And Bond University decided to do a media release. And basically they did a video of me and sent it out to all of the media outlets in Australia and said, this is the fun stuff that's happening at Bond. Feel free to post this in your media outlets. And so the media took my paper and decided that they were going to only promote the negative side of what happened. So there were headlines, I think it was in February sometime, I think around 18th of February, headlines saying vegan and vegetarian diets bad for your mental health, plant-based diets cause depression, all these bad things, which was not what we found. And then the vegan and vegetarian community, I know that this happened on a weekend, it happened on a Saturday morning, which was fun because I was not at work, I was camping in Ballina, and the vegan and vegetarian community got really angry at me on Twitter. They were finding me on Twitter saying, how dare you say these things about vegan and vegetarian diets? And I'm like, actually, that's not what we said. And I kept linking my paper every time someone sent me an angry text. And then people started following me and I kind of went viral a little bit. Just the dog wants to get out. Sorry, there you go, Oscar. And we went a bit viral over the weekend, which was kind of fun and not something I had experienced before, but started getting lots of followers. People were like tweeting my paper out everywhere and calling out the media outlets, which was really cool. And I loved because they shouldn't have been misrepresenting my research in the first place. And then a particular kind of social media guru in the plant-based dietary population said to me, do you want to clear this up? Come on my podcast. So I went on his podcast and we talked about the misrepresentation of the article and what happened. And then a few months later, I was on Twitter minding my own business in the morning, super early, 7 o'clock in the morning or something. And I got attacked. Well, I got attacked by a carnivore, someone who believed that only eating meat reduces depression and that vegan and vegetarianism is an eating disorder and that it kills babies and all these horrible things she was saying to me. Anyway, I'm not going to give away the punchline of what happened because someone did a YouTube video about it and explains it much better than me. So I'm going to play that video of the conversation that happened between me and the person in the carnivore community, keeping in mind they are from America.
Guys, I just wanted to do a quick video on something that was kind of funny and also shine a light on the blatant dishonesty from someone who's pretty active in the anti-vegan / carnivore communities. So Kevin Bass made a tweet about veganism and depression, and Ken Minnick, who has over 11,000 followers for some reason, decided to cite a study that she claims establishes a causal relationship between veganism and depression. The author of that study actually responded to her and pointed out that she was misrepresenting the study and that it instead found that a high-quality plant-based diet decreased depressive symptoms. Ken responded by saying, quote, "Your paper is not science. Is it peer-reviewed? No. Has another set of scientists independently found the same results? No. It may as well be a comic book," end quote. She's saying this about the paper that she cited as evidence. The author then responded pointing out it had, in fact, been peer-reviewed and published in one of the world's most well-respected medical journals. When someone else pointed out the fact that Kem was now dismissing a study that she herself just cited, she responded by citing it again, the same study she moments before had said was not science and claimed it may as well be a comic book, to try and argue that vegan diets cause depression, and also made up some weird statistic about 30% of vegans sneaking animal products in and lying about their diet. The person pointed this out to her and she once again cited the study and claimed it shows vegans are more depressed than meat eaters. Now all of that on its own is hilarious, but let's take a brief closer look at the study itself and the excerpt she keeps throwing around because it's pretty funny. So what the study actually looked at was the relationship between the quality of vegan and vegetarian diets with mood disorders such as depression. Basically, are there stronger associations with low-quality plant-based diets and things like depression than with high-quality ones? It was not comparing vegan diets to meat-inclusive diets as she seems to state here. She also keeps citing the following excerpt from the abstract. However, the association between plant-based diets and mood disorders such as depression remains largely equivocal. This cross-sectional study of 219 adults aged 18 to 44 explored the associations between an estimate of overall plant-based diet quality and depression in vegans and vegetarians. Overall plant-based diet quality was associated with depressive symptoms in vegans and vegetarians, accounting for 6% of the variation in depressive symptoms. My assumption here is that she just doesn't understand what it's saying. She might think that the word equivocal in the first sentence means something similar to equal. It doesn't. It means ambiguous or uncertain, and that it's consequently implying there's a causal relationship between plant-based diets and mood disorders. She might also think the part that reads, quote, plant-based diet quality was associated with depressive symptoms in vegans and vegetarians, end quote, means that plant-based diets themselves were associated with depression, but again, it's speaking about the quality of the diet and saying that depressive symptoms vary depending on the quality. Perhaps the most hilarious part is that 2 sentences later, it reads, quote, these findings suggest that a high-quality plant-based diet may be protective against depressive symptoms in vegans and vegetarians, end quote. So I'm not sure she even finished reading the abstract. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Anyway, I just wanted to put out this quick, fun little video for you guys. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for the support, and I hope to see you next time.
So, as I was saying before, about try not to get into arguments with the non-science community, quite often they don't understand about critical analysis. They don't understand about how papers are written, and will often misinterpret specific ways that we write in our papers as meaning something that they don't. So be very careful, and it's a bit of a waste of time sometimes. I know I say that, I don't do that though. I get into Twitter arguments all the time. I said that before, because I'm always trying to stand up for science and I shouldn't do that because they don't care. All right, so now we are going to move.
I was just going to comment before you move on, like they were quite insulting. Like it's a comic book. I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it?
But then she kept citing the paper, which was even funnier. To be honest, the way that argument went on for hours, but the science community got right behind me, and everyone, it went viral. People were tweeting it everywhere. They're like, look at this idiot getting smashed down by the scientists. Like, I think I ended by saying, look, go and do a nutrition degree.
Yeah.
Go do a nutrition degree, then go and do your PhD in the topic you're specifically interested in, and then come back to me, and we would welcome you with open arms to our research team.
Nice.
I'll see you in 8 years.
Nicely done.
And then every time she came back at me with something, I'd be like, hasn't been 8 years yet. So I just kept saying that, hasn't been 8 years yet. Come back to me in 8 years. So,
you handled it well.
But that's a bit mean. It's a bit mean, girl. So I don't engage with people like that anymore, because it made me feel bad about myself after I'd done it, because so many people were like, thought it was funny, but shared it everywhere. So I don't engage with people like that. I try to be as respectful as possible on my professional accounts as I can.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now I've lost you again, so I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can find you again. There you are. Can I share the screen and not lose you? No. Oh, I know why. Okay, I'll do it again. And I've just got to share and take off the sound. Yeah. Yay, that worked. Okay, cool. Any questions from anyone about anything to do with social media before we move? We're moving away from social media now, and we will talk about writing for the conversation.
Hi, may I ask you a question about Instagram, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
You say you post every single day, and I was just wondering how you generate your content for that. Do you have content
question.
schedules? I mean, because every day seems like almost a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have friends who schedule their posts, colleagues who once a month sit down in their office, schedule like 2 hours in their office to curate their posts for like 6 months and do it, and then do it automatically. I don't. I actually enjoy the engagement with the audience, and I enjoy putting the posts up. So I just do it in the morning when I wake up, if I remember. Just for 15, 20 minutes. And it kind of gets rid of the addiction to social media, that like scrolling for no reason, because I've got a purpose when I'm on there. How do I curate my content? So this is an interesting one. So I began by just taking photos of my day-to-day life. As you saw on the first slide, I'll go back to it actually. So these were my first 5 posts. So anytime I saw like a meme on another social media site that had something that was related to my research, I would post it. Now, when you do that, it's manners, scientific manners or academic manners, to quote the person's at in the comments. So if I post, hating someone else's body won't help you lose yours, and it was developed by @Mindset for Life Limited, I would put their @ into the comments below it and say, wonderful quote from @Mindset for Life about how we should love our bodies, or something like that. But with this one, this was just one that was on the internet of someone's body that was being freely shared. Then you don't have to do an @. So a lot of my stuff now is food photos that I take, or just little memes that I just take from other people's pages. Now that I've been doing it for 5 years or so, I also recycle my old stuff. So I'll go all the way down to when I first started, and if there's something there that's interesting, I'll just take a photo of it and repost it. So yeah. But just keeping in mind copyright and things. If you do anything that's copyrighted by someone else, you must mention them. And by mentioning them, they might actually follow you as well. So it's like 2-pronged.
Cool. Thank you so much.
No problems.
Megan, hi, it's Donna. I want to ask a question. I'm sorry if it's already been asked, because I did just drop out for 10 minutes. But with your social medias, do you only use it professionally, or do you have private, personal ones as well? Did you like transition everything across? Yeah. I'm sort of in that space where I've started to use my own to promote my very first articles and things, and it's just I'm just not sure, because I've got.
I would totally curate a whole new page for your professional account. No one on my private social media cares about my papers. In fact, I think it's annoying. It might annoy people from my personal Facebook to be like, oh, look at Megan bragging on about all these weird things we don't care about. So I have my private Facebook page, which I don't really use or engage with because it's boring and I hate it, and I don't really like Facebook anymore. But attached to that is my professional page. And I've invited everybody from my private page to my professional page, but only like a handful of people have followed that. But other people in my professional world will only follow that page, that Facebook page. But my Twitter and my Instagram, completely professional. I don't have any private versions of those. I don't see the need for it. It feels like double work if I had to. So everything should be done in a professional way. You can set them up as a business. So, and I always put the business name as Scientist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions about social media before we move on to the conversation? No? Okay, cool. So why is writing for the conversation? So first, what is the conversation? Does anyone know what the conversation is?
Yes.
What is the conversation, Donna?
From my understanding, I think I know what it is, that a lot of people who I know in academia write pieces for The Conversation that look more like, as it says there, a bit more journalistic versus having that peer review process. Is that about right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So the Conversation is an online news blog, basically. So there's a lot of different places that share articles written by people. The difference with The Conversation is that The Conversation, every article ever written in The Conversation is written by a scientist or an academic, or someone who has some form of qualification in research. And every article has to be backed by evidence-based citations. And I'll show you that in a second. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of websites can say a lot of things without having any form of backing. But The Conversation is the place that you can go to read an article written by a scientist and backed with their peer-reviewed citations, which is amazing. So we only ever want to be published in The Conversation. The best part about The Conversation is that it gets your research to the public immediately. So everything that you, rather than waiting for the peer-reviewed process and then waiting to get published, which can take up to 2 years, as soon as you write a paper, put it in for peer review, you can write a Conversation article about it and get it out there into the public, which is really cool. And we have recruited from The Conversation before very successfully, which is exciting. These slides are adapted from a conversation workshop that I attended in 2016, so please be aware of that. Why should I consider writing for The Conversation? Why do we care? The Conversation has over 30,000 registered authors. It's amazing research impact pathway that we just spoke about. All articles provide evidence-based citations. You have to write your article in a way that it is aimed at a 16-year-old readability. So going from these big convoluted sentences that we write in our publications, it has to be brought right back. And this was amazing for me right at the beginning of my PhD, because I wrote like that normally. So I had to really train myself in writing like an academic, and I was not doing that at that stage. So when I first began my PhD, The Conversation was a really good place for me because I was already writing like that. You have complete control over what gets put on the internet, or when it gets published. You sign off on the final draft of your articles, so they can't publish it without your approval. You've got an author profile which can show your expertise. It's another way of getting yourself out there, like social media. The Conversation will link and promote your article on social media, so it gets it out there as well, and they tag you in it. All right, so this is what the Conversation looks like. This is your dashboard. It will tell you how many papers you have written for the Conversation, how many times you've been read. At the time, I think I was on 808,000 when I did this last time, which would have been July of last year. Oh, look at that. Very close to a year ago. I'd had 249 comments on my articles, 102 which I responded to, and I had 22 engagements. So a little bit of background to what happened for me. When I started my PhD, I went to a workshop, the very workshop that I got these slides from, and it was aimed at academics. It wasn't aimed at PhD students. I just rocked up because when I was in my PhD, I said yes to everything. I went to every workshop. I went to every single thing I could. I engaged myself in everything. So I went to this workshop that was aimed at academics at SCU, And they were explaining, just like I'm explaining to you, how to pitch to the conversation, what the benefits are of pitching to the conversation. And I was thinking in my head, oh, I'm a PhD student, I shouldn't be able to do that. And one of the academics at the workshop said to me, Megan, you really should think about maybe writing a piece and see what happens. And at that stage, I was right at the beginning of my PhD. I was still engaged in the literature. I hadn't done any data collection. I hadn't even decided what methods I was going to use. I was basically just reading widely. And I wrote a piece on, let's go find it. Oh, at first I wrote about my honours study, my honours paper, and it got published. So it was on body image satisfaction in the postpartum. Where is it? Down here. Yep. Thinking you're on a diet is half the problem. Here's how to be a mindful eater. So that was my first paper. It got about 167,000 reads, which was really cool, back in July of 2018. Everything happens in July for some reason. Here's the paper. So as you can see, little heading, you don't have to do any of the pictures or anything. You just write the 500 to 800 words and they do everything for you. The best thing about it is the little links. So every time you write a sentence, you have to hyperlink it to the paper that you got that from. So that takes you directly to the scientific paper that I used to support that argument. Going down further, then they put in videos from YouTube, TED Talks, little links. You don't have to do any of that. That's all done for you. Again, another citation. Where did that take you to? Oh, that's taking you to an actual PDF of a paper. So I think the conversation is wonderful for this. Oops, I've lost the page. It's okay. Find it again. Oh. So once I did that, I wrote a little bit of a paper about my PhD and what I was finding was coming out of the literature. Where was it? Was it this one? So, want to improve your mood, it's time to ditch the junk food. Now, I wrote this, in February of 2019, I was right at the beginning of my PhD. I didn't have any experience in my field at all, but it was so popular that it went viral and it got hundreds and thousands of reads within a couple of days. And I became the highest read author at Southern Cross University, which was incredible because I was just new into my PhD. So that got me a lot of like people started to know who I was at SCU because of this, and it was being promoted by SCU, it was being promoted by The Conversation. So lots of things were happening for me. I was getting lots of people asking for media interview requests. I went on the radio a heap of times. I went on ABC Breakfast television. I did a lot of stuff just talking about diet and mental health, and I had done nothing in the research yet. But everything that I was talking about was backed by the evidence. As you can see, I definitely use all proper scientific research. So again, the importance of these types of the conversation to my PhD career was pretty amazing. So real world impact, not just on your research, but in the real world. So 60% of authors who pitch and write in The Conversation are contacted by the media for interviews. Every time we write a paper for The Conversation, as soon as it gets released, you have to kind of put aside 24 hours of your life to address the media, because they instantly want to talk to you. That's how they work. They email you and they're like, we're going online in 15 minutes. Would you be able to talk about your food and mood article in The Conversation? So you have to kind of put your life on hold a little bit. It's fun, but you have to definitely make sure you've got that time. 14% of authors were invited to speak at conferences. 15% were contacted for research collaboration. This happened to us when we did an article on student feedback surveys in academia and how it's creating mental health problems for those of us who have to access the mean, non-constructive comments that happen in student feedback. We got contacted by international research teams who are doing this in other countries, so that was really beneficial for our research. 77% get contacted for radio interviews. That's the main way that you get asked. 50% are contacted for print media. My son and I were invited to go in a magazine, which was really fun. So my son Byron loves that. He thought that was great. So we did a whole photo shoot at home, doing things with food, and that was fun. 25% get contacted to do television interviews. 35% get contacted for websites. I started getting contacted by people who wanted me to help them with their theses, which was cool. 8% receive business requests for consultations in industry, all these types of things. So there's a real world impact of your research directly from a conversation article. It's pretty impressive. The conversation actually messaged me about 12 months ago and gave me my feedback for how many people I have actually impacted. And although I've got currently 1 million reads, they said it's over 30 million people have clicked on something to do with one of my articles. So it was pretty crazy when you consider you write a paper and you put it in a scientific journal, and then a handful, 100 or so scientists will read it. 30 million people have engaged with something to do with my research from the conversation. When to write. So this is really important because the conversation gets so many pictures every day. You need to know when to write. So you need to keep your eye on the media and what's happening in current affairs. So you can talk about your research. Every time I write a paper or publish a paper, I pitch to the conversation. 75% of the time they say, go away, Megan. 25% of the time they're like, oh, that's cool. They don't like my plant-based research for some reason. They just won't, they don't think it's interesting, or that they don't think that the readers are interested in it. A news hook is a really good one. So if you see something in the media that is related to your research, one of my friends wrote a pitch to the conversation when Shane, what's her name? Who's the older lady who won Survivor? Shane Gould, the swimmer. Is that her last name? Anyway, she was in her 70s and won Survivor. It was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever seen. She and my friend was doing her PhD in active aging. And so we were like, this woman has just won Survivor, and we kind of knew it was going to happen a week before it did. And so we pitched to the conversation about an article surrounding the win of this 70-year-old woman in Survivor and its impact with active aging and the research that she was doing. So that was a really good one. So if you can find a hook that's linked to something in the current media that's related to your research. Another one of my friends did something on footballers and footballers drinking beers in the, like, after the game when they show them in the change rooms and how that should be outlawed. So he wrote a big piece on that in the conversation around the end of football season. You can do an explainer, so explaining something. You can do a fact check. So if you see something in the media and you're like, I don't think so, you can fact check someone, which is great. You can take a fresh look at an old issue. That could be fun. Or a listicle. Now I've written a listicle. I wrote 5 foods that can increase your mood. They're easy to write because you've got lots of headings. Any questions before we move on to refining your ideas for the conversation to pitch to the conversation? Cool. We will move on then. So refining your idea. So you always have to kind of do a little bit of research before you pitch to the conversation. The best way to do that is if you've got an idea in mind that you want to write about, you need to first go into the conversation's keyword search and make sure no one else has written about that yet. Go and have a look at what kind of stories the conversation actually publishes, because they're very particular in the way that they like things written. And think about whether or not your pitch would work for the Australian conversation or for one of the ones in other countries. So you've got conversation UK, you've got conversation US. I've written for the conversation in Indonesia, in all Indonesian, which is interesting. That got translated for me. Pay attention to the news. What are people talking about? If you are doing a business degree and you know a bit about inflation right now, that would be a good thing to pitch to the conversation. Do you know something no one else knows? And this is why we usually pitch every time we publish an article. If you're recruiting as well, it's a really good place. Talk to the SCU marketing team about your idea. They will be able to help you with your pitch. They have helped me on several occasions, the best way to go about pitching to the conversation. So how it works is the conversation gets you to pitch your idea, and then they tell you whether or not they want you to write an article. So you don't have to write the 500 to 800 words up front. You just have to come up with a little pitch about what you want to write. So that saves a bit of time. Your ideas need to be relevant to the wider public, not just to academics or scientists. That's the one thing the conversation will always ask is, why is this interesting to the public? Why would our readers want to read this? It's not enough that you've done something in science that doesn't matter to anyone else. Yes, Donna.
I was just going to ask about the pitching. When you say like giving a pitch, do they have like some kind of a template that you fill in, or is like, how does that work?
Yep, I'll show you that in a second. So I think the next slide actually has the template on it. So I'll show you immediately.
Thanks.
Let's have a look. There it is. So when you pitch to the conversation, they will ask you these 3 things. And I think you've only got like 150 words on each one. So in one sentence, what is your article about? Why do our readers need to know about this? Why is this interesting? What key points and examples will you use to support your argument? That's it. That's your pitch. So you have to be very convincing in this amount of words. Good question, Donna. So the conversation in Australia has 18 section editors. So health, which is what I pitch to, has 1. Education has 1. Law and business has 1. So there's 1 for each kind of style or area. They receive hundreds of pitches every day, which is why 75% of the time they say no to me. Your pitch has to be good. They can't publish everything. Don't get disappointed if you get rejected. Just pitch it again later. I've done that before. I've pitched something and then 3 months later pitched it again and been published. So do it later. Pitching is a skill. Practice it. It doesn't take long. It helps you with your persuasive writing, which is really handy for those of you writing PhDs or master's theses. You can also speak to the editors about what they are interested in publishing. Once you do start publishing with the conversation, sometimes they will come to you and be like, we've got this idea, could you write about that? They came to me one time and asked me, it was coming into the colder weather, and they said, we're really interested in how our dietary pattern changes when it gets cold and why we start eating more comfort food. Can you write about that? And I'm like, yes. Knowing nothing about this topic at all, I went away and researched it and wrote it for them and found out some really cool things for myself. That was a fun one, actually. Keep it conversational. It's not an academic paper. It needs to be fun. This is the pitch. What's your story in 1 sentence? Why is it interesting or significant for people who are non-academics? Do you have any photos, videos, audio, graphs, or other material to illustrate your story? They love this. I don't usually have that type of thing for my research. Maybe I could give them my video I just showed you. Always pitch after you publish in a journal. This way you can link the journal publication to the article and get more readers and potential citations. This was a mistake that I made early in my career because I got really excited and pitched to the conversation whenever I had an idea that hadn't been published yet, or it was in the review stage. And I missed out on being able to link my own article to the conversation article. So now I wait until I publish, then I pitch. So I can put my own article in as one of the citations. Any questions before we move on?
I do.
Sure.
How long do these articles take you to write? Because you mentioned that they were kind of outside of your normal PhD time. So are they particularly time consuming? Because you said that they're only 500 to 800 words.
They're only 500 to 800 words. And if you already know the topic, like the ones on my PhD, like this one, it didn't take me long at all. The main thing is getting the citations off the internet and turning them into links.
Yeah.
That is the tricky part. But when they came to me and asked me to write one for them, obviously that took a lot longer because it was not a topic I was an expert in.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of your PhD, or when you're doing like a thesis, and these are really good ways to help you write succinctly, because you have to write your whole idea in 500 to 800 words. So it's really good practice in doing that and writing it in a plain English way.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way of like getting your ideas about what you're doing and writing them in a different way, so it can consolidate some of your ideas about your PhD, about your thesis that you didn't realize when you try to dumb it down for the audience. But now, and I think that writing for the conversation was an amazing thing for my PhD and for my success in my career, but I don't write for them anymore.
How come?
Because I now would prefer to use that time to write scientific articles.
Okay.
Because I'm at the stage of my career now where I don't need the elevation of the conversation to get further. But if they come to me and say, can you write for us? I will, but I don't really pitch that much anymore. I probably should every time I publish, but it's just another thing to do. But it's really,
it sounds like.
Yeah, but it's really good when you're kind of in that early career research stage to do. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
No problem. So when we do write, as I said before, you just have to link in the citations. Dot points are okay, which is great. That makes things easier. Just making things very simple. As you can see, they're not very long. Now, once you have written for the conversation, it goes through an editor, and the editor decides, and they will copy edit your article, and they will change things in track changes, and you have to go through and make sure that what they've written is accurate. Because we had one situation in an article where they copy edited it, and I just went through and went, yeah, I'm happy with that, and didn't read it properly. And they actually wrote something about omega-3s that wasn't correct, and I didn't pick up on it, and it got published with the error. It might even be in this one. No, it's in the five types of foods that increase your well-being. But yeah, there was an error, and my supervisor picked up on it. And once you publish, you can't retract it. So it's out there in the world with an error in it for the rest of time, which I don't care too much about. But my PhD supervisor was not very happy that that had happened. Cool. Okay, so some tips when you are writing your articles. Work really hard on the first paragraph to grab the reader's interest. Most people will stop if it's boring at the beginning. Start with a short, sharp statement of the article's essential facts in no more than 2 sentences. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Make a brief sketch of your main points and stick to them. Put the most important information first, because people tend to drop off as they read it. This allows the readers to explore a topic in depth that their curiosity takes them. Not everyone reads the article to the end. Write how people talk. This is why I did so well in this, because I'm very colloquial. A man should never disembark from a vehicle when he can get out of the car. Explain complex ideas, define key terms, don't get technical, avoid jargon, don't use acronyms. Explain your research like you're talking to your nana or your 4-year-old. Is how I usually look at it. The readability is set at 16 years old. We talked about that. They do that because they want everyone of all different knowledge levels to be included as in their readership. This is what the editing process looks like. So this is all of the links. So you've got to go to the website where your link is, copy and paste it, put it in blue. So there's a link button up here. It looks a little bit confusing when you're doing it, but there's a readability. This one is saying it's red, so it wasn't very readable at the time when I was doing this one. It'll tell you how many words you've got. You've got to stay under a certain amount of words, depending on what the editor tells you. Yeah. If you make contentious statements, always back them up with research. The editor will get onto you about that. They're really picky. They're like, you said this and didn't provide supporting argument. So always make sure you've done that. Make sure the reference links back to either like a government website with an abstract, with statistics, or to a paper. I do notice a lot of other people link back to other conversation articles. That annoys me. Always go to the original resource. Please don't link to others unless you wrote it. The last sentence should aim to summarize or reiterate the point made in your opening paragraph, or you can just raise a question of what should happen next. Like I said, they love photos, videos, audios, and graphs. When writing for the conversation, do make it sound new, fresh, and a new take. Do the keyword search. Read and consume the media around your area, which you probably have done already. Drive the debate forward. Know how to explain your idea to a child. Get to know your editors and journos out there in the field. Leave your mobile on for 24 hours after it gets released, because you will be constantly hounded by the media. Act fast and always pitch before you write. Don't argue against yourself or downplay your expertise. Don't tell the people in the conversation you've tried to publish this somewhere and they're the second best choice. Don't tell them it's been published elsewhere. Don't publish. Don't write an article for the conversation that you have published in another media outlet. Don't publish something in the conversation and then publish it in another media outlet. Don't pitch after the interesting thing has happened in the media. It's too late. Don't send them 3,000 words when you agreed on 800 with the editor. Don't go missing in action when the media is asking for your stuff. There's the conversation Twitter and Facebook page. Any questions about pitching to the conversation or the benefits of the conversation?
I have a question in regards to the conversation versus other platforms such as Medium. What are your thoughts on that? I know Medium isn't as rigorous with its citations and such, and I think you actually have to either you pay or you get paid, or probably a bit of both. What are your thoughts on that?
The conversation is the only one that I would happily publish in, knowing its reputation for. I don't know any other sites that are as rigorous or strict, and so they're so strict to the conversation. Madison, who was here earlier, was talking about she's a master's student, and she
they won't publish her,
and they won't publish. They won't let a master's student publish. If you're publishing as a PhD student, you have to publish with your academic supervisor. You can't publish on your own. So they're really strict about who can and can't publish. And to be honest, sometimes it's annoying, but they are super strict on every single thing that you say being supported. And the editor goes and reads the article. And if the article's not backing what you're saying, they're like, this doesn't actually say what you said it said.
Yeah. Well,
has happened to me before.
In terms of research impact and just reaching a broader audience, do you think there's benefit in using a less rigorous platform?
It can damage your reputation.
Right. Okay, cool.
Which is why I only use this, because, and to be honest, like, I've had the same problems on my social media as, on a conversation as I've had on social media, because people, for 7 days after you publish, people are allowed to comment on your article. And I've been trolled by people who didn't like something I said. I know in one of my articles I said, in Western civilization, or in Western societies, we eat too much potato. And I listed another couple of things that we eat too much of. And I got trolled by a PT who did not agree with the fact that I demonized potato, and he like trolled me on every social media platform. He trolled me on the conversation. He wrote all these nasty things about me in the conversation. So also, if you don't have tough skin, be very prepared that there will be people who disagree with you, even though you're trying to help the world by telling them the foods that they can eat to help them feel less depressed. People will still attack you.
But potatoes are delicious.
We eat too much of them in Western society. I also eat potato, but not every day.
Oh. I can see why being a comfort food, why people would feel very very strongly about their potatoes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Donna.
I just wanted to ask you about what you've talked a lot about, how the media wants to contact you after you publish, and that sort of makes me feel quite intimidated, just you even mentioning that. So how did you cope with that, those first few interactions with the media, and was that difficult?
I'm a bit of a show pony, to be honest. So I wasn't intimidated by that. I was excited to be on the television, but I also had interview training right before I did that. Just, again, me being the type of person that I was, saying yes to everything in my PhD. I went to a workshop that SCU put on about how to interview for the media, which was completely like coincidental, but I'd had that training before I went, which was good. Often, because you are, as a PhD or a Masters of Research student, you will have to publish with your supervisor. So if you don't feel confident in doing the media stuff, the supervisors will do it for you. I have a few supervisors who prefer to do it themselves because they were scared I would say something wrong in the media and it would be there forever. So feel free to ask your supervisors if they would be more comfortable in doing the media stuff for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Good questions. Oh, there we go. Any questions overall about anything that we talked about today? Feel free to follow me. Please do. I'll follow you back. It'll give you an experience of like how I engage with people, and you can see the things that I'm doing. I know a fair few of you already have me on their Instas and Twitters. Are there any more questions about social media and research impact? Cool.
So everyone's gone quiet. Well, that was really great, Megan. Thanks.
No problem.
Yeah, very interesting, very informative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Megan. Inspiring. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
Well, yeah, thanks very much, Megan. I did put in the chat box your next workshop with the SCPA, which is coming up Friday the 19th of August. All are welcome, of course. It's about systematic searching for literature review.
That's right. Systematic
Excellent.
literature searching.
So it's going to be held in up on the Gold Coast, Friday 19th of August, 2 to 4. And you can register online and we've got a room for it. But you can also attend in Zoom. So just encouraging all of us to come along to that. All right, are you happy to wrap up there, Megan?
That's it. Thank you, everybody, for coming and listening to me today.
That was excellent.
Happy birthday, Megan, too. I just
Yes.
saw it is.
Yay!
Happy birthday.
I'm celebrating my second 21st today.
Aha. And your first birthday as a doctor?
My first birthday as a doctor. Yes, that's true.
Excellent. Well, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you for having me.
Okay, good on you. Thanks, everyone.
Megan.
Okay, I'll stop recording there.